So then we get to the Battle Memorial. Crosshair is greeted by none other than, speaking of Cody. So we didn't have much anticipation for that. Cody comes in. He's not wearing his signature yellow armor. He has some different kind of gray and white armor on.
So sad.
He specially requested Crosshair, is an interesting piece of information that we get.
I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
They did so well in this scene with kind of showing you, and you brought this up in your reaction video, but like the conflicted emotions going on in Cody's mind, where you can tell he's trying to feel it out. He's kind of like dropping subtle hints where he's like, well, yeah, all these clones are questioning the order, and I specifically requested you, and are we doing the right thing? And Crosshair just kind of immediately shuts him down, and he goes, nope. If you don't do what the Empire says, you are a traitor just like the Jedi. And you can see this moment on Cody's face where he's like, damn it.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I thought this was going to go one way, but he's totally in with the Empire and he's disappointed. So the way they set up Cody's conflict in this scene was really, really great. But also, alternatively, it was really interesting to see how Crosshair picked up on that and immediately shut him down. And I just really liked how that played out.
Yeah, was one of the notes I wrote down, actually, was just great animation here conveying emotion from Cody. Like, that's not an easy thing to do, to convey conflict within someone as they're in a scene, right? And they're trying to feel it out. Also, D. Bradley Baker going back and forth, and you have to be in these characters' minds as you're acting this out. So it's super impressive on that front, too. But yeah, that was one of my main notes, was just like, he's testing the waters with Crosshair. He chose him on purpose because he's clearly has some conflict, and he's like, hey, this is so weird. People are like questioning the Empire. Like, isn't that weird? Isn't that so weird? Like, I would never do that. And Crosshair's like, yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, that's for losers. And he's like, yeah, totally. Yeah. I would never question the Empire either. They're losers because we follow orders, dude. That's what we do. We just follow orders, and I agree with you. And anyone who defects, total idiot, dumb person. And Crosshair's like, yeah, dude, I know.
The thing that got me, and I want to pick your brain on this because this is really interesting, is Cody says at the end of that conversation, he goes, well, good soldiers follow orders. And Crosshair goes, mm-hmm. And then they walk out of the frame. So a big question in this scene is, A, does Cody still have his chip in? B, does Order 66 wear off after a certain amount of time?
Yeah.
Because Cody, throughout this entire episode, and specifically in this scene where he's talking to Crosshair in front of the memorial, seems very much like Cody. He doesn't seem like a clone that's just stiff and following orders and let's go here, sir. But did he get his chip out? Or is Order 66 just a thing that seems to fade off over time? Like, what do you think about that?
No, I don't. It's a good question to bring up because this is another thing I was thinking of during the episode. No, I don't think his chip's out. I don't think most of the clones' chips are out. Just because they're questioning it doesn't mean that their chips are out. Remember, Order 66 is really just for the Jedi. Now that the Jedi are gone, they're not, like, that's the only really major part of their brain that chip is impacting as far as we know, right? So, like, I see it as like, hey, we did our job. And then they can still think for themselves. They're not droids. And Cody even brings this up later on in the episode. He's like, we can think for ourselves. This is at the end of the episode when he's talking to Crosshair for the last time before he leaves. And so I don't think it does. I don't know that it fades off. I just think that their mission was accomplished. The chip accomplished its mission, but the soldiers can still think individually. And I think you're seeing this with other you are seeing this with other clones as well. Cody distinctly brings it up and says, well, there's people who are questioning if what they did was right.
Go back to season 1 of Bad Batch, where they were all struggling to get their chips out, right? And then Rex comes in, and Rex helps them. Like, it's slowly, like, impacting Wrecker, like, further and further, and he's, like, the first one to go. My question for you is, do you think it was because it was so close to Order 66 at that time? Because, like, what was it in season 1? Was it episode 8 where they finally get their chips out? Like, that had to be shortly after, right? Like, just a few weeks?
Yeah, that was very close to it, yeah.
But even he's, like, attacking other clones for it. I don't know. It's interesting. It's just an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah.
Whereas does it only serve this one purpose, and then once that purpose is done, they just forget?
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to be, like, angry robots all the time with it, you know? Like, they're still going about their business. I think even if it did impact Wrecker and all the other Bad Batch in those episodes, it wouldn't have been, like, they wouldn't have been, like, angry and brutish, like, the whole, for the rest of time. You know what I mean? Like, they still have individuality. And I think it's like, yeah, maybe it is a little stronger at first because it's literally changing the chemistry in your brain, apparently, right? But I think after that, it impacts all of them differently, it seems. So
well,
there's no way to really
interesting.
know 100%.
If you think about it, in season 1, the Empire was like turning up the effectiveness of Crosshair's chip.
Right. So like how are everyone else's? You know, there's millions of clones, right? Like,
Man, maybe that's like a further reason to get rid of them because you have to go back in and
you can't control them.
increase the
That's
strength.
why you want conscripted soldiers, is you want people who opt into this voluntarily.
Right.
You know, or are born around it and they grow up with it and conditioned to like it. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing to think about.